So for this next video, I will be exploring using the UC and the probe on tooth number 19, 20, 23, and 24. I'll begin with 19, finding the correct working end. I'll begin with my modified pen grasp, place my fulcrum about 2 teeth away from the working tooth, and then we'll begin at the distal line angle of the tooth, just trying to get in position. And then once I get to that distal line angle, I'm right away start pivoting and rolling into the coal, flip my instrument halfways, then I start to begin side to side motion, side to side, side to side, side to side, line and mesial line angle, start pivoting and rolling and walk into the coal, and then vertical strokes, and then tooth number 20, distal line angle, side to side, side to side, side to side, vertical strokes, up and down, and then out. And then going towards the mesial, again start at that distal line angle of the tooth, side to side, side to side, pivot roll, pivot roll, pivot roll, walk into the coal, vertical strokes, up and down, and then out. So next I'm going to be using the UC, and I am going to be showing you the correct working end, and basically the primary blade is going to be facing the tooth. Right here is incorrect because that face is pointing towards me. And then I'll begin with the modified pen grasp. The index finger is going to be slightly a little firmer onto the handle. I'll insert my instrument at the distal line angle of the tooth. And then I will slightly roll it out so that the bend of the shank is towards me. And then I'll begin my side-to-side movements, strokes into the distal coal. Once I get into the distal coal, I will begin with the vertical strokes up and down. Once I come out, I'm going to be, again, starting at that distal line angle of the tooth number 19. And this time I'm going to be using the primary blade, which is going to be against the tooth, and then the toe is going to be slightly open, and then I will begin side to side, side to side, side to side, and once I get to that mesial line angle, start pivoting and rolling, and then I will walk into the coal and I will do vertical strokes. And then tooth number 20, same thing, insert my instrument into the distal line angle. Just kind of make sure that bend of the shank is towards me, and then I will begin the side to side strokes into the coal, up and down, and then I'll rotate my instrument halfways, and then now I'm at the primary blade. So distal to mesial, primary blade, open that toe just a tad bit, and make sure that bend of the shank is towards me, which it kind of isn't, so I probably need to have been open just a little bit more. And then those vertical strokes are very choppy, actually. I need help with that. Okay, now I'm going to be using the perio probe for tooth number 19 and 20. If I haven't mentioned yet, I should be sitting at the 9 o'clock position. I'm going to begin by using my modified pen grasp. I'm going to be about 2, maybe 3 teeth away from the working tooth, so I have better range. I'm going to start high and then end with low. I'm starting at the distal line angle of tooth number 19, walk towards the distal high. Once I get into that distal contact, I'm going to slightly just roll the instrument into it and get my distal reading. Then once I'm done, walk it back out and still staying high. Once I get to that midline of the tooth, I am going to drop my handle. And then once I get to the mesial line angle, drop my handle even more, and then get my mesial reading. So I didn't mention on that tooth, once I hit the midline of the tooth, I will get my lingual reading a little after the midline. So walk, 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 drop my handle a little bit at that midline, and then right there I'll get my reading, and then drop my handle more right into that mesial line angle, and then get my final reading of the tooth. Okay, so next I'm going to be exploring tooth number 23 and 24, as well as using the UC and perio probe. I'm going to begin by working on the surfaces away from me. So the patient's chin is down and neutral to turn right or left, and I'll be sitting at the 1 o'clock, and I will begin at the midline of the tooth, and then I will place my fulcrum about 1 tooth away from the working tooth. And then I will begin by side to side, and literally turning, rotating my instrument, pivoting and rolling into the coal. I did notice a huge split there, so I'm a little disappointed I didn't redo that. Actually, I'm just not in good positioning here. I can just see my split. Although they're still stacked at the ends, it's gonna split. But anyway, side to side. Once I get into the coal, up and down vertical strokes. Then for the linguals, I'm gonna flip my instrument. Unfortunately, I guess I did not get a good view there, but I'll begin at the midline of the tooth, and side to side. And I'm pivoting and rolling. I should be pivoting and rolling right away. And then vertical strokes once I get to the interproximals. And tooth number 23. Did I say I was starting on 24? I meant 23. I meant 24. Same thing, side to side. Again, these... Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. These views are horrible. So now I will begin by using the UC. And I'm just checking here to see if I'm using the correct working end. And then I'll begin by inserting my instrument at the midline. And I am definitely struggling here. I'm having a hard time positioning where my tip should be. Again, I'm totally splitting. I feel anteriors are a challenge for me, so any helpful comments are very much appreciated. I am trying to start at that midline, and I'm just looking here, and wow, that is just awful. Okay, yes, so I'm going to flip my instrument and try to attempt the linguals surfaces away from me. Again, these views are just, very bad, but it looks like you can see that I do need help. So, yeah, that's the purpose of these videos, right? Okay, so moving on. Once I'm done with 23, I will begin with the perio probe. So when I do surfaces towards me, that's when I will show you the perio probe for the linguals of the anteriors. So here I'm going to be begin by exploring tooth number 24 and 23 first. Okay, and so I'm just going to begin by placing my fulcrum, and then starting at the midline of the tooth and work towards the mesial, side to side, pivot roll, pivot roll. Then I'm going to be exploring tooth number 23. Fulcrum is about 1 tooth away from me. I'm just going to adjust that. Again, making sure it's standing tall. I think that's where I struggle with the anteriors, and I notice I'm falling. My instrument's falling down, so yeah. Side to side, pivot roll. Once I get into that coal, just vertical strokes. I'm going to use my mouth here, flip my instrument. Again, I'm sitting at the 8 o'clock position here. I'm going to start at that midline of the tooth. I'm about to side to side, then pivot, roll right away. With the anteriors, you just want to right away pivot and roll. Okay, tooth number 23, side to side, pivot, roll, pivot, roll, pivot, roll, pivot, roll, side to side, or I should say vertical strokes. And I'm done with that. And then next I'm going to be using the UC. Again, I am going to be sitting at the 8 o'clock position, and I'm going to determine the correct working end, and that is the incorrect working end because that face is facing towards me. We want that face of the blade to face towards the tooth. I am going to be starting at that midline of the tooth. I am going to place it into the sulcus and begin with the side to side. And then tooth number 23, same thing. The toe slightly open, side to side. You don't want it flat. You don't want the blade flat against the tooth. You want it to be slightly open so you're actually on the primary blade again. So I'm gonna start on tooth number 24. Side to side, pivot, roll, up and down. Tooth number 23, start at that midline. Make sure you're on the primary blade. Side to side in just a second. Side to side, pivot, roll, up and down, and then out. And finally, I'm gonna probe. So I'm gonna start, I like to start high to low. So I'll be sitting at 8 o'clock, and I will be using my perio probe on tooth number 24, and I place that right into the distal coal. And let's see, so I'm just giving myself space so I have enough range to go up high, to start high, then low. Once I get to that midline, drop my instrument, walk it into the coal, and then get my mesial reading. And then again, tooth number 23, get my reading at that insertion of a distal, walk. Once I pass the midline of the tooth, get my facial reading, then walk to the mesial, and then get my mesial reading. And then next I'm going to be using my mirror, and I will get the lingual reading. I like to sit at the 8 o'clock, so I will begin high to low, tooth number 24, start at that distal, then walk. Once I pass the midline, get my lingual reading, and then once I get to that mesial, drop my handle. And it looks like I'm going to do tooth number 23, same thing. And there we go. And then once I get to that mesial line angle, drop my handle, walk into the mesial, and get my mesial reading. And then now I'm going to be using my Explorer on the buckles of number 19 and 20. I'll begin finding the correct working end, and I will establish my modified pen grasp, place my fingers about 1 or 2 teeth away from the working tooth, and then I'll begin at that distal line angle of the tooth. I don't know, this helps me. I don't know if it helps you, but you can't really tell, I guess, in this video, but my thumb is touching the maxilla, so that just allows me, or lets me know I'm in the right position. And this motion is more of a pulling motion instead of a side to side. So I'm going to start going towards the mesial, and I'll begin with like a pulling it up instead of the side to side. And then once I get to that mesial line angle, I'll begin walking it in my Explorer into the coal, and then do vertical strokes. So I'm going to redo that. Just felt like my fulcrum was falling off. And then I will begin again that distal buckle line angle of the tooth. Pull. Oh. Let's see. I'll try this again. And I just want to say side to side. Pull, pull, pull. Mesial line angle, pivot, roll, then walk into that coal. Vertical strokes. Okay, same thing on tooth number 20. Begin at the distal line angle of the tooth. And at the side to side. And then once I get into the distal, vertical strokes, that was just a bit choppy. And then turn my instrument. And then I will begin that pulling, line angle, pivot roll, then walk into that coal with vertical strokes. Okay, and then I'm going to be using the UC on tooth number 19 and 20. I will begin by determining the correct working end. The primary blade is going to be faced against the tooth. Terminal shank is going to be parallel to the tooth. And then I'll begin at the distal line angle, insert my instrument, and then I will open the toe up so the bend of the shank is away or towards, I guess you would say towards the cheek side. And then I will begin by going towards the distal, flipping my instrument. That primary blade is going to go towards the face of the tooth, or the buckle of the tooth, and I'll begin at the distal line angle and work my way towards the mesial. And I'll be pulling back, basically the same motions as I would do with the Explorer. So tooth number 20, same thing, pulling back, then going towards the distal into the coal, vertical strokes, rotate my instrument halfways, begin at that distal line angle, and pulling back motion, and then pivot and roll into that mesial line angle, and then into the mesial contact. And then next I'm going to be using the perio probe. Again, I'm going to be starting on tooth number 19 and begin at that distal line angle, walk into the distal contact. And let me see here. Okay, and then I'm going to get my modified pancreas, and then with my fulcrum. Let's see here. I'm just having a hard time placing my fulcrum. Okay, start high, walk my probe into the distal contact, slightly roll the instrument into the coal, get my distal reading, walk right back out, bob, and then at that midline, drop my probe in as well as get my buckle reading, and then walk all the way towards the mesial. Slightly rotate my instrument into the coal and get my mesial reading. Same thing for tooth number 20. I'm high with my handle. Once I hit that midline, I'm going to drop, get my buckle reading, and then walk into the mesial and get my reading there. And then we're done with that.